Buddhāvataṃsaka Sutra. Book 39. Entry into the Realm of Reality. Video 36. Shilpa Bija. Then Sudhana went to the youth Shilpa Bija, paid his respects, and said to him, "Noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear you give enlightening beings instruction, so please tell me how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out enlightening practice." Shilpa Bija said, "I have attained an enlightening liberation with higher knowledge of arts. In uttering the phonemes, as I pronounce by the associative power of an enlightening being I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Sphere of Totality. Pronounce Ra, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Differentiation of Infinite Levels. Pronouncing Pa, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Differentiation of Levels of the Cosmos of Realities. Pronouncing Cha, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Analysis of the Universal Sphere. Pronouncing Na, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Independence. Pronouncing La, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Unattached. Pronouncing Da, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Unregressing Effort. Pronouncing Ba, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Adamantine Sphere. Pronouncing Cha, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Universal Sphere. Pronouncing Sa, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Ocean Womb. Pronouncing Va, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Branching Out Everywhere. Pronouncing Ta, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Sphere of Light. Pronouncing Ya, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Multitude of Mixtures. Pronouncing Shta, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Light Extinguishing All Burning. Pronouncing Ka, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Unified Multitude. Pronouncing Sha, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Directed Rain. Pronouncing Ma, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Caressed of various currents of great force. Pronouncing Ga, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Extending to All Levels. Pronouncing Ta, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Unified Womb of Thusness. Pronouncing Ja, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Plunging into Purification of the Mundane World. Pronouncing Swa, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Supernal Manifestation of Recollection of all Buddhas. Pronouncing Da, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Contemplative Investigation of Truths. Pronouncing Sha, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Light of the Wheel of Teaching of all Buddhas. Pronouncing Ka, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Womb of Knowledge of the Causal Ground of Accomplishment. Pronouncing Ksha, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Investigation of the Treasury of the Ocean in which all actions are stilled. Pronouncing Sta, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Light of Purity dispelling all afflictions. Pronouncing Na, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Access to Worldly Knowledge. Pronouncing Ta, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Sphere of Knowledge of the Cycles of the Mundane World. Pronouncing Ba, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Array of Manifestations of Spheres of Existence. Pronouncing Cha, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Division of the Encompassing Sphere of Practice Applied to Development. Pronouncing Sma, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Turning to Face All Directions to See All Buddhas. Pronouncing Hua, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called Matrix of Power to observe what all sentient beings cannot. Pronouncing tsa, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called plunging into practice of the ocean of all virtues. Pronouncing ga, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called strong oceanic vessel holding the multitude of all teachings. Pronouncing ta, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called going in the direction of the vows of all Buddhas. Pronouncing na, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called voicing the millions of configurations of the wheel of phonemes. Pronouncing pa, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called sphere of the ultimate development of all sentient beings. Pronouncing ska, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called suffusion of the sphere of light of unimpeded intellectual powers contained in the stages of enlightenment. Pronouncing sya, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called sphere of exposition of all Buddha teachings. Pronouncing sha, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called thunder of truth filling the sky of beings. Pronouncing ta, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called lamp of the ultimate consummation of selfless work for the benefit of sentient beings. Pronouncing da, I enter a door of transcendent wisdom called matrix of the distinction of cycles of the teaching. As I pronounce the phonemes, I enter immeasurable, innumerable doors of transcendent wisdom, beginning with these 42. I have attained this enlightening liberation with higher knowledge of arts, and it is this I know. How can I know the practice or tell the virtues of enlightening beings who have attained perfection of all mundane and transcendental arts, inasmuch as they have no barrier, no doubt, no confusion, no uncertainty, no hesitation, no ignorance, no difficulty, no impairment, no frustration, no lack of knowledge, and no misunderstanding in regard to the subject matters of all arts, all writing and mathematics, all applied sciences of spells and herbs, all the bases of obsession, psychotherapy, epilepsy, lameness, and insanity, the science of compounding medicines, chemistry, mineralogy, the making of parks, groves, villages, towns, and cities, knowledge of the vicissitudes of the world through astronomy, physiognomy, geomancy, meteorology, agronomy, and prediction of trends of events, and the analysis, communication, understanding, and actualization of all transmundane phenomena. In the city of Vartanaka, in the region of Kavalaka, in this same country of Magadha, there lives a laywoman named Buddhāvataṃsaka. Go ask her how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. So Sadhana paid his respects and left the noble youth Shilpa Bija. Buddhāvataṃsaka. Then Sadhana went to Vartanaka city in the region of Kavalaka, where he called on the laywoman Buddhāvataṃsaka. Paying his respects to her, he said, "Noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear you give enlightening beings instruction, so please tell me how to learn and practice." She said, "I know and teach a doctrine called baseless sphere and have attained a concentration of mystic empowerment. In that concentration there is no foundation of any phenomenon whatsoever. Therein is produced the mystical empowerment of the eye of omniscience, the mystical empowerment of the ear of omniscience, the mystical empowerment of the nose of omniscience, the mystical empowerment of the tongue of omniscience, the mystical empowerment of the body of omniscience, the mystical empowerment of the mind of omniscience, the mystical power of the waves of omniscience, the mystical power of the lightning of omniscience, the mystical power of the flood of omniscience, spheres illumining the world. It is this doctrine of the baseless sphere that I know. How can I know all the unobstructed, unattached practices of enlightening beings? Go south, there is a city called Bharukacha, where there lives a goldsmith named Muktasara. Go ask him how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightenment beings. So then Sadhana paid his respects, took his leave, and departed. Muktasara. Then Sadhana made his way south, to the goldsmith Muktasara in the city of Bharukacha. Paying his respects to Muktasara, Sadhana said, "Noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear you give enlightening beings instruction, so please tell me how to learn and practice." Muktasara said, "I know an enlightening liberation called supernal manifestation of unobstructed mindfulness, and I ceaselessly seek the teaching at the feet of all Buddhas in the 10 directions. I only know this enlightening liberation. How can I know the practice or tell the virtue of the enlightening beings who roar the fearless roar of the lion, who are grounded on great virtue and knowledge? There is a householder named Suchandra living in this city, whose house is always illuminated. Go ask him how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings." So Sadhana paid his respects, took his leave, and departed. Suchandra. Then Sadhana went to the householder Suchandra, paid his respects, and said, "Noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I don't know how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear you give enlightening beings instruction, so please tell me how an enlightening being is to learn and practice." Suchandra said, "I have attained an enlightening liberation called light of undefiled knowledge. I only know this liberation. How can I know the practice or tell of the virtues of the enlightening beings who have attained infinite liberation? South of here is a city called Raruka, where a householder named Ajitasena lives. Go ask him how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings." So Sadhana paid his respects and left. Ajitasena. Then Sadhana made his way to the city of Raruka, where he called on the householder Ajitasena. Paying his respects, Sadhana said, "Noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear you give enlightening beings instruction, so please tell me how to learn and practice." Ajitasena said, "I have attained an enlightening liberation called inexhaustible appearance, with the attainment of which I obtained an inexhaustible treasury of vision of Buddhas. South of here is a village called Dharma, where there lives a Brahmin named Shivaragra. Go ask him how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings." So then Sadhana paid his respects again and left. Shivaragra. Then Sadhana made his way to Dharma village and called on the Brahmin Shivaragra. Paying his respects, he said, "Noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear you give enlightening beings instruction, so please tell me how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. Shivaragra said, I act on a vow of truth, that is by truth, by speaking truth, there has never been, is not now, and never will be, a single enlightening being who has turned away from supreme perfect enlightenment, who is turning away, or who will turn away. By that vow of truthful speech this work of mine may succeed. So whatever I wish comes to fruition. By this vow of truth, I accomplish all my tasks. It is this vow of truth that I know. How can I know the practice or tell the virtues of the enlightening beings whose words and deeds mutually accord in truth? South of here is a city called Sumanamuka, where there live a boy named Sri Sambhava and a girl named Srimati. Go ask them how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. Then, with great reverence for the teaching, Sadhana paid his respects to the Brahmin Shivaragra and left. Sri Sambhava and Srimati. Then Sadhana went to the city of Sumanamuka, and there he called on the boy Sri Sambhava and the girl Srimati. Paying his respects to them, he said, Noble ones, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear you give enlightening beings instruction, so please tell me how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. They said to him, We have attained and experienced an enlightening liberation called illusory. Having realized this liberation, we see all worlds as illusory, being produced by the illusion of causes and conditions. We know all beings are illusory, by knowledge of the illusion of afflictions in action. We see all worldlings as illusory, born of the illusion of ignorant craving for existence. We see all phenomena as illusory, arisen from the illusion of mutual conditioning. We see the whole triple world as illusory, produced by the illusion of misunderstanding. We see all sentient beings, afflicted by birth, old age, death, grief, lament, suffering, and sorrow, as illusory, born of the illusion of untrue ideas. We see all lands as born of illusion, produced by the delusion of ideas of substance of existence in the illusions wrongly seen by the conceiving mind. We see all hearers and individual illuminates as illusory, born of illusory thoughts of knowledge and effort. We know the succession of all enlightening beings' practices, vows, and developmental guidance of sentient beings as illusory, being essentially illusions of action and teaching created from illusion. We see the circle of all Buddhas and enlightening beings as illusory, being essentially illusions of the inconceivable realm, produced by the illusions of vows and knowledge. We know this enlightening liberation of illusoriness. How can we know the practice or tell of the virtues of the enlightening beings who follow the extensive network of the endless illusion of action? Then the boy and girl, having showered Sadhana with an inconceivable stream of virtue and told him of their own range of liberation, said to him, Go south, to a place called Samudrakasha. There is a park called Great Array there, wherein there is a great tower called Chamber of Adornments of Vairocana, which has been produced by the maturation of roots of goodness of enlightening beings, originating from the thoughts of enlightening beings, arisen from the vows of enlightening beings, based on the masteries of enlightening beings, created by the power of mystic knowledge of enlightening beings, made of the skill and means of enlightening beings, completed by the power of virtue and knowledge of enlightening beings, showing enlightening beings great compassionate guidance of sentient beings, built of arrays of spiritual powers of enlightening beings, adorned by the states of inconceivable liberation of enlightening beings. There an enlightening being, a great being named Maitreya, lives for the purpose of benefiting the people of his native land, developing his parents and relatives to maturity, making those there who carry out the same practices firm in the great vehicle, to develop the roots of goodness of other beings according to their states, to show how to enter this liberation, to cultivate the power of an enlightening being to be born anywhere and travel about, appearing in all states of being, to perfect those beings, to develop the power of universal compassion of enlightening beings in the desire to benefit all beings, to become aware of the state of enlightening beings, which is detached from all abodes and locations, and to appear to live in all states of existence, while being ultimately unattached. Go to Maitreya and ask how an enlightening being is to seek the practices of enlightening beings, clarify the path of enlightening beings, carry out the studies of enlightening beings, purify the aspiration for enlightenment, accomplish the vows of enlightening beings, establish the provisions of enlightening beings, enter the stages of enlightening beings, fulfill the transcendent ways of enlightening beings, persist in the tolerances of enlightening beings, stabilize the qualities of achievement of enlightening beings, and attend spiritual benefactors. Why? Because the enlightening being Maitreya has entered into all practices of enlightening beings. He has reached the goal of aspirations of all enlightening beings. He has comprehended the actions of all beings. He has confronted the developmental guidance of all beings. He has fulfilled all the transcendent ways. He has been through all the stages of enlightening beings. He has attained all the tolerances of enlightening beings. He has attained the certainty of enlightening beings. He has received all the predictions of Buddhahood. He has roamed in all the liberations of enlightening beings. He has held the empowerments of all Buddhas. He has been anointed by all Buddhas with the consecration of the realm of omniscience. As a spiritual benefactor, he will nourish your roots of goodness, increase your determination for enlightenment, make your will firm, purify all your roots of goodness, increase the powers of your enlightening faculties, show you the realm of non-obstruction, bring you into conformity with the stage of universal goodness, introduce you to the means of carrying out all the vows of enlightening beings, describe to you the perfection of the virtues of the practical undertakings of all enlightening beings, and tell you about the practice of universal good. You should not develop just one virtue, nor concentrate on clarifying just one doctrine, nor be satisfied with just one practice, nor concentrate on carrying out just one vow, nor take up just one instruction, nor rest in completion, nor think of attaining the 3 tolerances as ultimate, nor rest upon fulfillment of the 6 transcendent ways, nor stop on attainment of the 10 stages, nor vow to encompass and purify a finite Buddha land, nor be content with attendance on a limited number of spiritual benefactors. Why? Because an enlightening being should gather infinite roots of goodness, assemble infinite provisions for enlightenment, Produce infinite bases of aspiration for enlightenment. Learn infinite principles. Extinguish the afflictions of infinite beings. Penetrate the minds of infinite beings. Know the faculties of infinite beings. Work for the emancipation of infinite beings. Be aware of the conduct of infinite beings. Create guidance for infinite beings. Destroy infinite afflictions and their consequences. Clear away infinite obstacles caused by actions. Put a stop to infinite views. Remove infinite mental afflictions. Produce infinite mental purities. Destroy infinite miseries. Evaporate infinite oceans of beings' cravings. Dispel infinite ignorance. Bring down infinite mountains of pride. Remove infinite bonds of the mundane world. Evaporate the infinite ocean of birth. Cross over infinite torrents of existence. Extricate infinite beings stuck in the mud of desire. Emancipate infinite beings from the dungeon of the triple world. Place infinite beings on the path of sages. Extinguish infinite lust, hatred, and delusion. Rise above infinite nets of demons. Purify infinite will of enlightening beings. Increase infinite effort of enlightening beings. Produce infinite faculties of enlightening beings. Purify infinite resolutions of enlightening beings. Enter infinite equanimity of enlightening beings. Pursue infinite practices of enlightening beings in their entirety. Purify infinite qualities of enlightening beings. Fulfill infinite practices of enlightening beings. Accord with infinite worldly practices. Show infinite adaptations to the world. Produce infinite power of faith. Stabilize infinite power of vigor. Clarify infinite power of mindfulness. Purify infinite power of concentration. Arouse infinite power of wisdom. Stabilize infinite power of resolution. Produce infinite power of virtue. Expand infinite power of knowledge. Establish infinite power of enlightening beings. Fulfill infinite power of Buddhas. Ascertain infinite ways to truth. Enter infinite realms of truth. Clarify infinite doors to truth. Produce infinite lights of truth. Create infinite perspectives on truth. Illumine infinite groups of faculties. Clear away infinite afflictions. Collect infinite spiritual medicines. Cure sentient beings of infinite sicknesses caused by afflictions. Collect infinite stores of immortality elixir. Enter infinite Buddha lands. Honor infinite Buddhas. Enter infinite assemblies of enlightening beings. Remember infinite instructions of Buddhas. Endure infinite maliciousness from sentient beings. Cut off infinite paths of misfortune. Give infinite happiness to sentient beings. Create infinite benefit for sentient beings. Purify infinite methods of mental command. Carry out infinite vows. Cultivate infinite powers of universal love and compassion. Persist in infinite endeavors in search of truth. Pursue infinite powers of meditation. Develop infinite mystic knowledge. Purify infinite lights of knowledge. Go the ways of infinite beings. Encompass infinite becoming. Appear in infinite different forms. Know infinite different languages. Comprehend infinite differences in the minds of beings. Enter the vast realm of action of enlightening beings. Live in the vast palace of enlightening beings. Observe the profound state of enlightening beings. Awaken to the mysterious realm of enlightening beings. Reach the difficult goal of enlightening beings. Sustain the hard-to-attain energy of enlightening beings. Enter the difficult of access certainty of enlightening beings. Be aware of the varied practice of enlightening beings. Show the ubiquitous miracle of enlightening beings. Receive the united multitudes of teachings. Spread the infinitely varied network of practices of enlightening beings. Fulfill the endless ways of transcendence. Receive infinite directions for the future. Enter countless doors of tolerance. Purify countless stages of enlightenment. Purify innumerable ways of access to truth. Purify untold Buddha lands. Put on spiritual armor for endless eons. Serve infinite Buddhas. Accomplish the undertakings of inconceivable vows. In short, the practice of enlightening beings is to perfect all sentient beings, to live in all ages, to manifest birth everywhere in all conditions, to awaken to knowledge of all times past, present, and future, to practice all truths, to purify all lands, to fulfill all vows, to provide for all Buddhas, to be one with all enlightening beings in aim, to attain rapport with all spiritual friends. Therefore you should not tire of seeking spiritual friends and benefactors, should not weary of meeting spiritual friends and benefactors, should not become complacent about questioning spiritual friends and benefactors, should not give up the determination to contact spiritual friends and benefactors, should not cease striving to respectfully attend spiritual friends and benefactors, should not misconstrue or resist the advice or instruction of spiritual friends and benefactors, should not be irresolute in acquiring the qualities of spiritual friends and benefactors, should not doubt the ways of emancipation shown by spiritual friends and benefactors, should not malign the acts of spiritual friends and benefactors adapting to the world to expedite their work, should not give up increasing pure faith in spiritual friends and benefactors. What is the reason for this? It is from spiritual benefactors that enlightening beings learn the practice of enlightening beings. It is through spiritual benefactors that all enlightening beings' virtues are perfected. Spiritual benefactors are the source of the streams of all enlightening beings' vows. The roots of goodness of all enlightening beings are produced by spiritual benefactors. The provisions for enlightenment are produced by spiritual benefactors. All enlightening beings' perceptions of truth derive from spiritual benefactors. The purification of all ways to enlightenment derives from spiritual benefactors. The accomplishment of all studies of enlightening beings depends on spiritual benefactors. The virtuous qualities of all enlightening beings are based on spiritual benefactors. The purification of all enlightening beings' wills is rooted in spiritual benefactors. The steadfastness of determination of all enlightening beings is born of spiritual benefactors. The light of the oceanic mental command and intelligence of all enlightening beings derives from the guidance of spiritual benefactors. The treasuries of ways of purification of enlightening beings are sustained by spiritual benefactors. The lights of knowledge of all enlightening beings are generated by spiritual benefactors. The excellence of vows of all enlightening beings is in the hands of spiritual benefactors. Single-mindedness is led by spiritual benefactors. The faith characteristic of the attainment of all enlightening beings has its source in spiritual benefactors. The secrets of all enlightening beings are in the treasury of spiritual benefactors. Spiritual benefactors are minds of principles of enlightening beings. The sprouts of power of the faculties of all enlightening beings are fostered by spiritual benefactors. The oceans of knowledge of all enlightening beings are expounded by spiritual benefactors. The treasuries of all enlightening beings are guarded by spiritual benefactors. The accumulations of virtues of all enlightening beings are protected by spiritual benefactors. The purities of life of all enlightening beings are generated by spiritual benefactors. The multitude of teachings for all enlightening beings come from spiritual benefactors. The entries into the paths of emancipation of all enlightening beings are in the keeping of spiritual benefactors. The enlightenment of all Buddhas is attained by association with spiritual benefactors. The practice of all enlightening beings is governed by spiritual benefactors. The developments of virtues of all enlightening beings are illumined by spiritual benefactors. The directions followed by all enlightening beings are shown by spiritual benefactors. The greatness of will of all enlightening beings is described by spiritual benefactors. The power of universal love of enlightening beings derives from spiritual benefactors. The power of universal compassion of enlightening beings is generated by spiritual friends. The masteries of all enlightening beings are governed by spiritual benefactors. All elements of enlightenment are produced by spiritual benefactors. The charitable works of all enlightening beings originate from spiritual friends. Continue to video 37.